partnership with the Tulsa Housing Authority's 36 North. And so it will be, as some would like to call it, the Turkey Mountain of North Tulsa. This project will provide biking and walking trails, connection with nature. Very excited about the possibility of having a fishing pond. Having access to all of these amenities in this area is going to be huge for the entire
right, welcome to the 1 p.m., which has been, now it's the 1:38 p.m. Budget and Special Projects Committee meeting. Sorry for the delay getting this started, but our 10:30 went over a little bit, so. Item number 1, I call this meeting to order. 2, discussion with the mayor's office regarding the proposed FY 2026-2027 budget, historic operational outcomes, private fundraising efforts, and a line item overview of the 2024-2025 and 2025-26 fund utilization for the mayor's office of children, youth, and families. Is the mayor with us?
The mayor's here, but the deputy mayor.
Was here the whole time. There she is. I know, you were here the whole time for our last meeting, so. Yes, yes. I think there's an extra one here for the last meeting. There's that here, an extra table. Extra one at the table.
Okay, we're just playing musical chairs real quick. Yeah. It is.
No one deserves
There
some
was
of these
one that I
chairs.
took from the corner, so.
It's a wonky chair. All right, good afternoon.
Hi, Counselor. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Yes, I'm the Deputy Mayor, City of Tulsa, and today I'll walk through the items that you shared on the agenda, and then provide a little bit more context on the office, and then really excited to have this conversation after the TPS conversation. We can see where there's intersections.
There's like a radio or something.
Is there an owl outside?
Yeah, there's some sort
or-
of, sorry, we're just hearing some kind of noise.
It's in there.
Oh, no, that's too big.
Thank you.
It does sound out.
I was
wondering why you were
somebody's
looking at
podcast.
No, sorry, Crystal, it's just very
Someone told me
Yeah.
you sound like an owl.
Do I have something on my face? No, my fillings are picking up the radio.
No, it does
signal.
sound like there's something.
Sorry, Crystal.
We apologize, that was just, it's bizarre.
It's been a long morning.
Yeah, well, do you want me to jump right in, or we
Yes.
gonna wait for
Yep,
the owl?
we're ready. Let's
I know
go.
the cats have exited the building, so.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I thought I'd start with this slide, just to illustrate how we really are thinking about youth outcomes as interconnected with the rest of our priorities that we've been talking about, for the last 2 years. And I think that's something we all agree on. The kind of really top of mind ones that we talk about a lot is really a child that isn't housed, can't focus on school. Family financial stability directly impacts housing stability. And then a community that does not experience public safety. It's difficult to navigate walking to school or attracting investment or trying to get to jobs. And so I really wanted to start with that I don't see youth outcomes as a separate initiative or a separate priority. It really is an interconnected priority with everything that we've been talking about. And so to tackle or to address, the experience, the kind of challenge we have with achieving student outcomes or improving student outcomes, and I'm talking about student outcomes for the whole city, right? We just heard, from TPS. We have 2 other school districts in our, public school districts in our city, and we also have, of course, charter schools and children that are not participating in any public school or maybe homeschooled. So we really are taking a holistic approach to who are the children we're talking about in our city. And so to reiterate, I think what Dr. Johnson had shared in terms of how we can collaborate across the city, it really points to that barrier that a lot of things that impact student outcomes are not in the classroom or are not within the school walls. Not all of our children in Tulsa, and we have the data on this, are meeting those milestones that lead to economic mobility. And those milestones I'll talk about a little bit later, all the way from pre-K to graduating from post-secondary experience to getting a great, good job. And so Tulsa, through this Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families, is organizing around these issues. And I just want to note, it's not replacing the work of schools or the nonprofits that provide such a safety net that keep our families afloat. It is supporting it. And so MOSIF and the Children's Cabinet, which is under there, fill this gap. And this is, I I just wanted to put together a few data points that I think we all know. And I also don't want to, dwell too much on these, but at the top, I really think it's important that we all know this number, that nearly 50% of families in our community cannot pay for basic needs. The wonderful work of the United Way has really illustrated that for us, and kind of the simplest way to put it is the portion of families in that 50% are those living below the federal poverty level, and then an additional, I think, 29% of families are not making enough to make ends meet, and that means paying rent or having to, trade off between, food versus medical bills. And so that really is a high number for our community. And you can see the correlating statistics, including data that is from the U.S. Census, but also that we calculate through our partnership with United Way as well on our quality indicators. For example, our child abuse rate is and neglect rate is twice as high than the national average. And we also know more granular data, transportation continues to be a barrier. And I think we all know about the childcare desert and the childcare crisis that we have right now. But again, those are just some of the barriers. I didn't want to dwell too much on those because what I didn't have time to do is put a slide together on the resilience that our families have, and all that has been able to be achieved in spite of barriers, and all the nonprofits that provide such a safety net that keep our families safe and housed and afloat. So to make the connection between those barriers that are outside of the classroom to some of the outcomes, and this is county-wide outcomes, 25% of our third graders are scoring proficient or above. So it's a very small amount that are reading at grade level. We have data through Impact Tulsa's analysis that, if a child has experienced eviction within 1 year, 70% of those children are chronically absent. And then we also have data that 14% of young adults, 18 to 24 in Tulsa, are not in school or not working, or what we would say disconnected. And so MOSIF is really the unifying kind of convener of the systems in the city that impact those things outside of the classroom. And it's a way that we get together to talk about shared priorities and what are those shared outcomes we want to see for children and youth in Tulsa. And so the city's role in this is to convene, to align, we heard that a lot today, have a platform of unity around what we want to see for young people. I think we're all kind of normalizing those outcomes. We really want to see pre-K enrollment that makes someone kindergarten ready, reading at third grade, being able to experience career-connected learning in high school, and then going on to achieving post-secondary success and eventually getting that great, good job. So the box on the right summarizes what we've been doing this year to build what we're calling the civic infrastructure to address child outcomes. And so I do compare this work, and I thought it might be a good analogy, comparing this work around what we're doing around homelessness. Way Home for Tulsa is our continuum of care. It convenes the stakeholders, the providers. There's common data. There's a common understanding of what we would like to see in outcomes. And that all takes a lot of coordination and a lot of work to bring people around the table around that common goal. And so I kind of feel like that's similar. We are basically creating kind of a way home for children in this work. And then I wanted to point to a peer city. Dallas established this work in 2012 through an organization called Commit and the Child Poverty Action Lab, and they've seen some great outcomes. But it took years to kind of like get the data together, the convening, and then really tracking those population level outcomes. And so, on the right, just to reiterate, this adoption of shared metrics, which is the cradle to career milestones that I talked about, and that we'll talk a little bit more about. The partnership with our backbone organization, Impact Tulsa, which is also a data organization. So in Dallas, it's kind of two separate organizations, and in Tulsa, we have that in one. The commitment to citywide goals and identification of priorities, which we actually talked about those earlier today: transportation, early grade reading, youth jobs, and housing stability, and committed system leaders who are around the table. And then, of course, participation of community organizations through our action alliances, and also, of course, young people. Just a quick illustration of this type of work. So we're not doing something that is out of the norm or, we're trying, being the vanguards in a way. We are in good company with about 60 to 70 cities across the country who are using a Cradle to Career framework to organize their city partners around child outcomes. And all of those cities have a backbone, a Cradle to Career backbone, and we're lucky that Impact Tulsa, we have that here already. Dallas is kind of our closest one, a lot in Texas. And this is just a quick slide on, I think, kind of started the conversations in 2011. In 2012, they launched this Cradle to Career initiative. CPAL, the Child Poverty Action Lab, which is their partner with Commit, does a lot of the data work. And they brought people around the table, and those statistics I pulled they're the most recent statistics that they have on their website. So they've seen a substantial increase in students attending pre-K and increases across all the grades and subjects in their state test scores. And I love that they also track living wage attainment among 25 to 35-year-olds. That is our workforce, and hopefully we can see those outcomes here in Tulsa as well. And so the funding request to the first question, so in fiscal year 26, $275,000 was allotted or allocated, and that funded our contract with Impact Tulsa. Those 4 areas were what were in the budget, so staff time to support the cabinet and the action alliances, convenings, meetings with me to plan things and co-create, kind of the operations that support all that, and of course community engagement, so the time, resources, materials it takes to convene a good meeting and create a good experience, and then program design and implementation, which include a lot of their data analysis work to pull data and also to create the analysis that inform the programs. And so for fiscal year 27, we're asking for flat funding, but with a slight change. And so we wanted to see if we could carve out some funding for someone to be 100% full-time leading this office. So that amount, I think I put a note there, it's estimate because 2 things. We don't know kind of the timeline of bringing someone on, so they may not be here the full year, so we might not expend the full amount. And then also the contract with Impact Tulsa in a spirit of co-collaboration and partnering, definitely we need to talk about what is a sort of more narrow scope that could support the work and what that would cost. But that's generally the split that I was thinking for this next year. And so just to kind of reiterate, the work to support the action alliances, the cabinet, that does take time. It's coordination. It's people's time to convene, host the meeting, have the executive committee meetings in between, preparing the meetings, and then the action alliances. While we had 2 big convenings that convened the 5 action alliances across, including many organizations, there was interim meetings in between as well to really move the work forward and produce deliverables for the cabinet. And so, I use kind of the metaphor of like civic infrastructure. We maintain like streets and roads, and we connect neighborhoods. We have signage. We have, roads and streets that we can traverse. The Children's Cabinet is building the civic infrastructure to connect between all the systems that impact the environments that children grow up in, and also having common metrics, common signage to understand where we're going. And then to put a little bit more detail on kind of why one person kind of focused on this 100% would be very helpful to advance the work. These are the kind of 8 functional areas that this person would oversee. So the first 3 within those brackets, we would coordinate with Impact Tulsa, and so the contract would support those activities. Again, convening the Children's Cabinet. That cabinet consists of 35 leaders, and not including their proxies, so that's many more. We convene everyone from the head of the health department to the housing to transportation, the 3 tribal nations, our business community, so a member of our regional chamber, former chair, our community-based organizations that kind of see a system-level approach. We have a faith-based leader, and of course we have 3 high school students. And so we were really intentional in convening the system leaders, and with the action alliances, convening those that work directly with families. Again, the action alliances include 5 groups that have focused on early childhood, youth jobs, youth voice and leadership, as well as flourishing families, and that really is Action Alliance focused on supporting families that are feeling destabilization shocks, particularly around housing and also immigration. The youth workforce ecosystem, that one is really exciting to me because we were able to leverage a partnership with a national organization called Fuse Core, and we created a project with them to have someone focused for this whole year on how do we create a youth internship program or kind of youth workforce ecosystem that is accessible to all. So the wonderful work that TPS is doing, how can that be a citywide thing that is youth-centered and also like very easy for a young person to navigate, and also easy for their parents or their a helper, right, mentor or teacher to navigate. So we have someone that's been working to meet with our stakeholders across the city related to that, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the activities, but these are kind of the functions that this director would oversee. The other piece that would be something that is would be added value with someone focused on this is that policy piece, tracking all the state, federal opportunities, developing recommendations. I think that the conversation you all had two weeks ago on childcare, there are some state level initiatives that businesses may not know about matching funds. There's opportunities maybe within our own code to be able to address issues that could maybe ease the burden for parents. And so that is something that I would love to see built out, having sort of that policy analysis arm as well. And of course, I'm addressing emerging needs. That, to me, is one of the great value adds when you have a priority and someone that is focused on that. And of course, I'm not like, cutting myself out of this at all, but I do have other duties as assigned sometimes. And so being able to have someone that is like 100% always thinking about this would be amazing, especially as those emerging needs happen, whether there's a community shock that happens, or there's a great opportunity that's coming down the pike from the federal government or the state, and we can rally and really organize, kind of similar to how we were able to do that with our immigrant and refugee community. We were able to leverage some opportunities to support our Afghan neighbors when they evacuated, because we had someone on board that could like convene people really quickly and identify, gosh, transportation is an issue, and we were able to pull down a grant. So this is something that our director would be able to do. And then I think, just to show you really quick, coordination of a lot of people takes time, but these are the amazing people that have been part of the Children's Cabinet. We've had great attendance for the most part, and we have some members here to support. Counselor, did you want to take a picture of that? I can also send it to you. That's the Children's Cabinet. And then the Action Alliances. So again, we launched 5 this year, and what we wanted to do is build on the great work that's happening in Tulsa. So a lot of these organizations maybe have been meeting separately or kind of, meeting kind of consistently. We've actually been able to add more people to these groups. People reach out to us, they want to see how they can get involved, and as we've been continuing to have these conversations, we make connections and are bringing more and more people to the fold. And we have some great national TA partners that have helped us convene these and move these forward as well. Okay, this is a summary of the fiscal year 26 activities. So on top, the Children's Cabinet. Again, I think one of the really great things, and I just love that TPS highlighted some of these as well, the Children's Cabinet decided on 4 priorities they were going to focus on, and they gave that charge to the Action Alliances. And so the Action Alliances have developed reports, which I'll talk about, but those 4 priorities, we heard about those today. So the transportation barriers that children and families experience, housing stability, early literacy, so ensuring our 3rd graders are reading at level, and then youth workforce, so improving opportunities for young people to experience, what it would like to have a career in, X, Y, Z. The Action Alliances are connected to the Children's Cabinet, So we activated the 5, and again, over 100 organizations, individuals, and students are participating. We had those 2 large convenings in the fall and one in the spring, and with the support of Impact Tulsa, they've created 4 reports, each related to those priority items that include some barriers that they've elevated as well as possible solutions for the cabinet to consider. The emerging needs area, that one, when the federal government shut down, that was an area where there was a lot of concern about what was going to happen to people who have SNAP benefits. And so being able to kind of jump in and support emergency food collection in partnership with United Way, and just connecting with our food organizations. Those are the types of things. It was a small effort, but the type of thing that when there's an emergent need, that there is some place that we can kind of galvanize and rally the troops around that. And then youth workforce. I am working with our fellow, who is Stacy, who maybe some of you have met. She has experience in this area in Detroit and Atlanta, and she's done some really great work in Tulsa right now. She's met over 70 people across 30 organizations, and doing kind of structured interviews. And also she's surveying young people and also looking at peer cities and collecting information on what other cities are doing to improve outcomes for young people related to career-connected learning opportunities. And so some of the things that she's learned in her sorry, I was thrown off a bit by something there. Some of the things that she's learned through this, landscape analysis we're talking about is that young people don't know how to connect to those opportunities. There was also the nonprofits you talked to are saying, like, we don't know how we can get employers to connect, right? So it seems like there's real need for coordination and connection. And young people are really wanting this. It's hard to navigate right now, unless you have a program or a teacher that has created something in their school, or there's micro bright spots in the city right now. We want to have that go across the entire city. And so her goal or her deliverable will be to develop recommendations for Tulsa, kind of how it could be funded through various funding streams, what it should look like. She's also prototyping a possible database or a portal that could support how someone could navigate getting a referral into a program like that. And then some of the planned activities for fiscal year 27. Again, strengthening the cabinet governance, continue to work with the executive committee. So grateful that they take the extra time to help us plan in between the cabinet meetings. The cabinet will play a role in guiding kind of what will be implemented or tested this year. So launching pilot programs or practices, ideas, policies, using data and evidence, that'll be part of the planned activities. We'll also work with the Youth Council and the Youth Action Alliances to get more of their feedback, so that's already kind of taking place. The fiscal map should be published pretty soon with incorporation from, or edits that you all had a few months ago on how it should be presented. We're also doing the peer city survey on youth workforce, and then rolling out the Know Your Number campaign. That it's going to take a little bit more time this year. We're going to be figuring out what is the best way to share, what are the milestones and the number of students each year we want to be seeing meet those milestones. And I think, earlier this year we released some preliminary numbers, and I think we learned some lessons around okay, how do we present these numbers? How do we say, how does everyone know that these are citywide and there's a collective impact behind that? So we'll be rolling that out. Impact Tulsa is using a national methodology similar to how we use a national methodology for our quality indicators. And so we're really looking forward to that, because that's a way for community members, organizations to also contribute to Know Your Number. What are they doing that are contributing to increasing the number of young people achieving those milestones? And then we'll launch 2 additional action alliances, so one on place-based initiatives and one on post-secondary career pathways. And that is really exciting to me because we have so many great place-based initiatives taking place in Tulsa on various ends or various parts of the continuum, from a purpose-built community to a nonprofit that's serving their kind of neighborhood and not really as connected to the broader purpose-built efforts. And so we'll be working with the William Julius Wilson Institute to see how we can embed kind of child lens, cradle to career lens into those place-based initiatives. And then the post-secondary career pathways, I'm excited about that as well because some of the conversations between the housing barriers and challenges that young people are experiencing, and also the experience of those trying to get through the post-secondary path, those conversations I feel like are coalescing, and we can really do some amazing things in that space. And the Tulsa Higher Ed Consortium has been a great thought partner on that. And then just, I think this might be the second to last slide. So the Action Alliances have developed some ideas for what could be tested in the city to address some of these challenges related to transportation, early literacy, youth workforce, and housing stability. And so we are aiming to activate some private funds to support testing out these programs. They could be an intervention, a policy change, a program, a pilot. And it'll be focused on those 4 priorities and including the Action Alliances. And some of the pilots would expand work that's currently taking place or pilot new solutions. So that's the general timeline. It will depend on if we secure those funds. We've been invited to apply from a foundation, and they will make that determination in June. And I'm hoping with all the work that we've already done, we'll be able to really hit the ground running to develop and design and be able to launch some things before the end of the year within those 4 priorities. And then lastly, I mentioned the Cradle to Career milestones. That's them right there. So I think that might be the first time I've shared the slide. So all the way from pre-K, early grade reading, middle school math, high school graduation, post-secondary enrollment, post-secondary completion, and then, a great job that pays a living wage. Those are the milestones that, according to research, put a child and a youth on a path to economic mobility. And so that's what we want to track. We want to see young people in our city achieving all 7. We have baseline data from 2024, some preliminary data that we've shared, but really we need to roll out a more comprehensive way to explain this know your number, explain kind of the children achieving those milestones across the continuum. And so that'll be work that'll take place this year, since I think with no intention at all, if there was any kind of understanding that the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Families achieved those milestones this year. That wasn't the intent to take any credit for, those achievements, but it is a citywide collective achievement. So I think lesson learned from that, and we'll be able to maybe design something that's more clear and makes it understood that it's a collective achievement for our city to see children achieve those milestones. So I think that is it on, yeah. So I'll end there. If you have any questions, then,
Ready?
yeah.
All right, Counselor Ballas.
I was curious, you mentioned if that grant comes through, there'd be certain efforts piloted. I was curious, could you tell us more about what would be piloted and about how many grant dollars are being pursued to do this?
Yeah, and again, because nothing's confirmed, it feels,
But that's okay.
I don't know, presumptive
Or just
for
to
me.
give us a sense
But
of
yeah, so we,
what it would cost or what it looks
we're
like.
thinking we'll be able to apply for up to $500,000 from this grant, maybe piloting 2 to 3 or 4 initiatives. Some of the ideas that have emerged from the cabinet and the Action Alliances include, for example, in early grade literacy, supporting literacy navigators for families, launching a citywide early literacy campaign. On housing stability, there's already work that's been done to create not only eviction alerts, but also connecting families to legal services. That's been piloted in one high school. Perhaps we need to see how it's working in another high school. So that could be something that's funded. Transportation has come up a lot. That might be the biggest ticket item to figure out, is there, for example, and again, I'm not speaking for Scott or, I don't want to say that this is the plan, but things that have been brought up are, how can we create more transportation opportunities? So maybe a micro link that is connecting young people to their internships and their high school, or figuring out how we fund certain routes given all the federal federal regulations around transit already. So those are some ideas that have come up. On youth jobs, I think one of the biggest, I think, barriers is just like the paying interns, right? We're moving away from having free interns or unpaid interns, and so I think some of the kind of piloting we could do to create an internship program or prototype how someone could navigate getting an internship to getting support and getting paid could be part of those pilots as well. But we are still going through the Action Alliance reports. So we've reviewed early literacy and housing stability. And so at our next cabinet meeting, we're going to be talking about transportation and youth jobs. And so we'll talk about possible interventions, pilots, programs that we would want to test at that meeting.
Is there a point, or did you look specific? Okay. Is there a point where, out of curiosity, like thinking about the budget proposal this year being split between like an internal staff member and then ongoing consulting, is there a point where you'd see that like ongoing consulting from impact kind of sunset and then those dollars could go to implementation of programming like that or piloting things? Because I could understand why in a year or two you're like, okay, we probably still need this type of technical assistance and support. Is the kind of idea, and I know this may be evolving, to always have that paired with it, or is there a point where we go, okay, we need the staff person, and then we can move these dollars away from an outside external consultant to like direct programming, or I wasn't sure what the intention was.
Well, I think we need it all, right? And I think that's how it's working in other cities, and even the Dallas program evolved over time, with the mayor's office and the commit and then CPAL and then kind of, and I like the idea someone shared from one of these Cradle to Career initiatives is like, we don't have to own everything, right? Like, there's no, right? And so
I helped fundraise for CPAL's first.
Yeah, so
thing,
like
that
what
was
role
big.
they can play, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there will always have a need for a backbone, and that's why we were so kind of ahead of the game in Tulsa, because we already had that in Impact Tulsa. This year, I think, just given that we did need, or I do see the need for one person, we do have to talk about kind of what their scope is, and again, in the spirit of collaboration, like I'm still going to work that out with Impact Tulsa to figure out what is the narrow scope that can be funded. But in terms of program dollars, I think the amount of dollars we would need is just, it's more than this, right? And so one of the things that you helped, Counselor, is figure out how we could get a grant writer. And so we're close to signing a contract for that. And so I think some of the ideas that emerge from the Action Alliance and the cabinets, like we need to go and seek bigger dollar amounts to be able to have that impact.
Okay.
So I'm not saying no and I'm not saying
No,
yes,
that's
but
helpful,
I think this work will evolve over time. I hope it's not a 2 or 3 year thing. I hope, this is for the long term. And, I think Counselor Gilbert, you mentioned like a previous education meeting that happened years ago. Like, it would be great to always have, like, we're always at the table, and this is setting that up for institutionalizing the work.
No, and I do want to realize, I'm glad you brought, like, thinking about like Dallas and CPAL. I think I've realized at this table before, but it's been quite some time, like getting to experience that at their onset where they reverse engineered, here are these milestones that matter, which one of the first programs they did was replicating actually my nonprofit, which was really cool to get to do, related to like healthy birth outcomes. But it was great that they were playing, like, just to realize my colleagues, like they were playing that convener, and I think we heard from TPS today how invaluable that is, I think, but like, or just like attention I want to acknowledge. I don't even know if this is a question, but if you have thoughts around this. And I know maybe this is something we're all grappling with from a budgetary perspective, as a city government, is that whole like collective impact as a model can be such a powerful convener and help mobilize and bring people together and launch initiatives. And it can also be this overhead umbrella that absorbs resources that then they don't get downstream into like direct service hands. So I think I'm just being mindful of how do we make sure that like what happens even from like a dollar perspective isn't the dollars sitting like at that convener backbone phase, but they're actually getting directly somewhere. And I also simultaneously understand the need to build up infrastructure, and that's why in the year 2 the dollars are still kind of like up in that umbrella place, and that then the idea is to like have a grant writer bring in dollars that we can then infuse more directly into the community. But I just want to name that, to me that's always kind of a tension. And it's something that's also, I think, in, was it one of Matthew Desmond's books, like Poverty, where he talks about all of the dollars that these kind of overhead government and nonprofit entities can eat up versus what it would cost to get them directly to people. And per your point, though, some of these initiatives, they cost a lot more than these dollars to
Yeah.
launch. So I understand it's important to be able to like have the infrastructure to go pursue those bigger dollars too. I just want to name that
I
tension.
agree, Laura, and I don't know if folks know my background, but I ran a organization in Hunts Point in the Bronx, and we were a collective impact organization, and when I stepped in, like, there is a tension when you have a kind of backbone organization that then also starts doing programming or, you know, and so, yeah, it's very important to be able to have a backbone organization, a data organization, and that can leverage dollars that can get more directly into communities. So yeah, that tension definitely is there, and I appreciate that.
You done?
Yeah.
All right, I've got Bengal, Hull Harper, and then Dr. Wright.
So put this in perspective for me. Can you go back to your action group?
The lists?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So why wouldn't these folks fund this?
Why wouldn't the nonprofits there
Yes.
fund the interventions?
Right, that are part of this.
Well, a lot of them are nonprofits themselves. And I think the idea is that we are bringing organizations that are maybe doing things separately and helping to align them and creating something that is kind of combining all of them. So for example, I guess I'm thinking, what would be a good example? So the Birth to Three Action Alliance, they are convened, and they've decided to focus on two things: quality and respectful prenatal care, and also recruiting and retaining a quality childcare workforce. No one organization does that, but they all have a piece of it or can inform it. And so the idea is that whatever is the intervention or the idea that they fund would be outside of them. Maybe one nonprofit could lead it or
I
be the.
apologize, let me reframe
Okay.
my question.
Sorry about that.
No. Because your answer didn't hit my ears right.
Okay.
Let me ask this in a different way. So all of these individual organizations have their own specific initiative that they're working towards, right? Quite frankly, in my opinion, a lot of 501s subsist off of government funds. And like
Oh, not
council-
anymore, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
They cut all
So
that.
the problem for me is what I heard here kind of feels more like an ABC versus the necessity of creating a convener. Because that's basically what our ABCs do, for the most part, is they convene. So when you were saying it takes time to do this and this and that, that's what our ABCs are doing. They're volunteering their time and their expertise in this capacity. So that's why I'm asking, in your Action Alliance member organizations, I'm not asking them to individually be the experts at that. I'm asking why they wouldn't be, if this is impactful to them and important to them to become member organizations, why are they not helping fund this?
Did you want to say something, Mary?
I just have
Yeah.
a perspective, Counselor, it's a good question. I think as I look at all the organizational lists, this may not hit your ears right the first time, but I think, yeah, hang with me. They are funding activities every single day. They're doing things out in the community. This is about making sure that these are laddering up to overarching goals that we have all together. And I would even say, in ABC as an example, there's a cost associated with an ABC as well, right? Like, there's somebody internally that manages all of our ABCs too. So like, we still even invest there, from a capacity standpoint, if we're just talking about ABCs. But in this case, I think we can look at all these as assets in the community across those milestones that Crystal brought up. And then how do you package all that where you have an organization, and we'll talk about TPS, they were here earlier, where they have a massive contribution as it relates to children and youth. No, we all know that. But that is somewhat contingent on their particular district boundaries, right? Union the same way, Tulsa Tech the same way. How are we leveraging all that for greater outcomes in ways we can quantify it, and articulating the role that we might have as a city that might be different than TPS or whatever the case may be. So it's really about a partnership deal, and like, sure, I guess there's a world in which each one of these organizations could maybe more like a chamber of commerce type of a deal, spend some of their budget. I would say that is a way to do it. the best practice, I kind of go to that list of 70 communities that Crystal brought up, that this is the model that works best in this context, I guess is the best way I can. So like there's a universe where all these, they could all pay, some money, some sum of money to do it. The best practice in this space is that there is some infrastructure built, just like we think about physical infrastructure. She said civic infrastructure. Think about this as the piping and everything else on the ground that allows us to build.
Yeah, but I was thinking about that in the context, as Counselor Bellis was talking about, is there a potential where this gets stood up, the infrastructure is stood up to a certain point where this isn't gonna hit your ears, right? It feels like we're paying for
You
the
always
same
hit my
thing
ears, right?
twice.
Just always.
Yeah, I know.
What did you say? You're doing what?
It's melodic.
It's like we're paying for the same thing twice. I'm paying for a contract, right, for somebody to do specific part of the work, but then I'm also standing up a convener. And that's why I said, I don't take issue with some of the goals specifically. What I will say about studies, personally, is I find studies you need to take them at face value, so most of the studies that I've seen. Because I had a conversation with somebody who tried to argue a point specifically with me about a specific study that was done at a university, and I said, well, I can find a study that supports any ideology or idea that you want to support. And I said, I could go find one that says picking and eating your boogers is good for you. And I literally went and found it and shared it with that person. And this came from an MIT. Did
it change your practice on how you feed yourself?
No, I'm just saying. But that's what I'm saying. This came from MIT.
Can't wait to tell my daughter.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm okay with studies in relevance, but the funding, we're being asked to fund this, right, as citizens. And so my challenge to me is when you have all these organizations that have foundations, that have funding.
They don't have foundations for that.
I know that, that's what I'm saying. So why wouldn't these folks be, if they're as invested in this work, why wouldn't they stand up the funding for this? That's what I'm really challenged in
So,
understanding.
no, I totally get that. I mean, and again, I go back to every one of these organizations spending a tremendous amount of funding on programs. And I think, as we think about the programmatic impacts, community level outcomes is what we're thinking about all the time. And so it's like, so I wouldn't say that they're not invested, but they're invested in the programmatic supports that they have a mission to do as an individual organization. How do you quantify that as a city for the impact we're looking for at a community level? It's a challenge. Crystal put up the data earlier, and we do have challenges in this community, and some of it's not all because, of folks aren't doing a great job, but there is definitely a need for us to think about how are we fully maximizing all those collective efforts toward better outcomes. And so, like, I think what everybody has learned across those 70 communities that Crystal showed and across the country is that, yes, we have amazing practitioners who have great programs out there. There is something that's missing. How we do this collectively, how are we filling in gaps is a big part of that. And I guess the reason why, I believe that this was a shared priority for those of us as elected officials is because we recognize that maybe there is a role for the city to play to fill some of those gaps. I think being clear on what that role is specifically is in some ways a value proposition for us. I mean, you guys had a conversation with TPS. I tracked some of it. There's a lot of questions about what do we do about transportation? What do we do about this? What do we do about that? There's a value in us better understanding that and how we get better outcomes for the people who live in this community, which on the back end has a huge economic benefit. And so the 275, in my view, you can certainly look at it as why are we being asked to pay for this. I also hope that on the other side, we see the value to us and being able to understand what is our clear role, what should we be investing in, how do we rally partners to get the things that we want for young people and families in this community. So I don't know if that hits your ears right, but I think that would be my best justification.
I get what you're saying, but
275.
I want to hope that at some point in this, we can expect to see what that return looks
So
like.
one of the returns, I will say, and Crystal talked about it a little bit, is the ability to go out and this year, have $500,000 that can go directly to programmatic supports. which might be the tip of the iceberg. And then I think on a go-forward basis, in addition to the things that might come here for pilot, even if we're able to help facilitate some of these other partners getting resources, because we have this infrastructure built, I think is really important. So I feel very confident that the 500,000 as a starter for this year, this is a second for the 275 million that's for, is one great way that we've leveraged the office already in just the second year. I think you can see more of that, and that stuff goes directly to the programmatic things that were discussed earlier and others across this cabinet to say, hey, here are the things that we really are high impact investments that we need as a community. So I think that's something that's already happening, right? Some of the outside money is starting to roll in.
Okay.
Well, and to go on Counselor Bengal's question, when this program was first rolled out last year, we were told that this specific office would go out and search for private funding. Did that private funding ever occur?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, this opportunity, which we've been invited
But we
to
were
apply for.
told last year that
Yeah.
you would be able to do that, go out and find private dollars to match what the city put in.
So I'm gonna defend Crystal on this. So part of the challenge has been
And not you, but in
Well,
fact,
me, I'll
Tulsa,
defend
whomever,
myself. How about
the
that?
mayor.
I'll
The
defend
mayor was
myself.
supposed to find the
Yeah.
funding.
So one of the challenges has been the resource that we're talking about, this $500,000 resource and a go-forward basis of other resources. It's been part of something we've been working on for a little while. Timing there's been a whole bunch of reasons, broader partnership across this community. Timing has been the only thing that's held us back. However, the time we spent last year has definitely put us in position to be able, when that, after June, whenever it is, and those resources become available, we'll be able to immediately put them to work, and it's gonna be on the recommendation of all the folks that Crystal talked about, been part of this. So some of the timing of it has been somewhat out of our hands, but the identification of that resource is directly tied to the $500,000 Crystal's been talking about in the presentation.
All right, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Hull Harper and then Dr. Wright.
Okay, yeah, thank you, and I'm sorry I was late coming in here. And my name was listed on one of those,
Yes, you
slides.
were
Yours
member
And I
of the
just wanna
cabinet.
say, yeah, I'm on the cabinet, but when the meetings were shifted to Thursdays, they kind of threw me out because I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
So hopefully, the summer, I'll be back, but, I mean, I just want to reiterate, and even Dr. Ebony Johnson said it earlier, how impactful this is, and to be in a room, because I was able to attend several of the meetings before, I couldn't attend anymore. And it is very impactful, the work that they are doing, and the approach that this is taking. I come from a public health background, and so we had similar initiatives as it relates to the indicators of health and those types of things. So I'm certainly a supporter of this type of model. And it is, I understand how crucial it is to have a convener. We served at the Tulsa Health Department as that convener for many years for a whole group of
Yeah.
entities in the community. So I get what you're trying to do, and you need funding for it, because it's imperative that you have that. If you're going to convene all of those organizations, they all have their, to your point, goals and objectives and the things that they're working on. But to see the collective impact, and I think that's what this is one of the missions of this, is to be able to see that collective impact and have someone or organization convening that to be able to say, okay, we need more of this and less of that, or that kind of thing, that their sole job is to look at it from a panoramic view. Because each organization, they dig into what they're doing, and that's all they're focused on. You see what I'm saying? So, how we get the funding for it, that's what we're here to talk about. But I understand.
That's why I was asking about the ABC model.
Right.
Yeah, I understand the need, absolutely.
Yeah, that does
Because
take
that's
time.
just how, it takes time and it takes money. You got to dedicate resources to get it done, for it to be done right, and to be successful. So but my question was, if you go back to the slide, I think it was the last one, before the slide before that one. And so when I was looking through some of these planned activities, I can't remember what box it was, I think publish a public-facing children's map, whatever, but anyway, dealing with children. I'm getting a lot of calls now, and I'm just wondering, has this been a topic of conversation, because I haven't been there, as it relates to the cuts in daycare. It is crazy. I still don't understand how the state was able to even think about doing something like that and actually carrying through with it. My district has more daycares in it than any other district in the city. And that type of cut is detrimental to society. Because you're talking about parents can't go to work. If they can't go to work, I mean, that literally has the potential of shutting down our very economy. And so I think it was from 70 million to 7 million, some type of drastic cut
50
like
million
that.
cut, yeah, I think.
And so, just wondering, again, having been at the meetings, has there been any conversation about that and the approach to addressing that? Because I don't know that
That feels so
it has hit
urgent,
us,
yeah.
yes, as a city, it hasn't hit us yet, but it will.
It's happening, it's just I think it's a slow rolling
It's a
crisis.
slow-
Yeah,
yeah.
it's,
And
it's
it's
real.
Sean Fett has turned into.
It's gonna take
Yeah.
millions of dollars to offset that type of negative impact. So that was just a question. I'm not laying it on this,
Well, I
the
think-
mayor's office of children, youth, and family.
But
I'm
it
not
has
laying
to
it on
land,
there.
but it has to land somewhere, right?
But it
to
has
be
to
able
land somewhere.
Rally,
And who's
galvanize, yeah.
convening around that issue?
Yeah.
That's,
That Yes for Tulsa's
Yeah.
Children Coalition is.
okay, what is it?
They put a report out, is that
The
what they're
Yes
called?
Coalition, yeah,
Yes for
it's a
Tulsa
group of
kids,
like,
yeah.
And they are part of
So
this,
yeah.
the convenient, okay.
Well,
that's
yes
all
for,
I'm-
well, the members are, yeah, so
Members
Yes
are,
for
but it's their
Tulsa
own
Kids
effort.
Coalition is a like a coalition of nonprofits.
Organizations, yes.
Organizations, they're growing slowly, more coalition members.
So did they start as a result of this
They just
decision?
put- No, they've been working for several years, but.
But they're
obviously
responding to the
Responding to
Okay,
this.
good. I just wanted to make sure.
So childcare and out-of-school time.
Okay,
is the-
so
yeah.
my baby's well out of that, so I just was wondering that for my own personal, so it's good to know that. And then, on the 7 milestones, the last slide to the, okay, that one. Just wondering, measuring progress obviously is great. How do you foresee actually being able to do that and maintaining the measurement? You're talking about kindergarten, will this be incorporated into TPS where each child will be marked or tracked to say milestone met, you know what I mean?
So
What's the
that-
thought about
The
it?
detail of it would be for Impact Tulsa to answer, so we
So
can give
have
you
you
that.
figured it out yet?
So they have a methodology,
Okay.
and they are, yes, they're figuring it out,
Figure
but again, the external, how we talk about it, we need to plan for that more.
I
there
mean, I think
are-
that's great.
Yeah.
To be able to literally check going through that process to make sure
Yes.
that we reach economic mobility at the end of
Yes.
the day. But I
And
was just
counselor,
wondering, was there
just
any?
to underline the put, yeah, they know how many students are reaching those milestones, how many more we need to get to the full, everyone achieving those milestones,
Can
so
I
they
ask
can
a
track that.
clarifying question about the milestones.
Mm-hmm.
So, was it Dr. Raj Chetty came and was presenting last week?
I'm
and-
so sad I missed that, I
Oh
was
my
out
gosh,
of
it was
town.
over. I still haven't
but-
sent you my notes and all my screenshots.
Whoever
Okay.
could send me
But,
screenshots
you know,
would be
Counselor
awesome.
Decker and I were there, and something interesting, he really highlighted where he was looking at the overlap of these two maps, where it was upward mobility and like social capital connectedness, and how overlapping those heat maps are. Like in places that have upward mobility, they were able to use creepy Facebook data to go, these are people who have connections to
Yeah.
social capital. And he highlighted that like the earlier in life a kid's family moves into a higher mobility neighborhood. He used an example in Tulsa of moving from Springdale to Kendall Whittier. That like the more economic mobility and opportunity they have. And one of the things he highlighted that was really eye-opening for me as someone who's worked in education before is he talked about, you know, how important obviously investing in early childhood is, and that access is in neighborhoods to upward mobility. And I know a lot of people who look at this data have historically looked at how that gives such a great boost to literacy rates, but then you see it fade by the time you hit 3rd grade reading. But then what he actually spoke about that I thought was fascinating was that he said that those were like kind of, in some ways, you know, those test scores, I know it's better than having no measure, but it's a flawed measure because you still see this bounce back later of more economic mobility in those youth, and that those like reading scores aren't an end all to be all. Like, right, like that there's other, you know, it's like catching a snapshot point in time on one metric, and there's a lot of other things that have much more to do with like neighborhood condition and access to
Yeah.
resources that does. So I'm just wondering, because that is a lot to like track a like kid or community through, and like I don't know, it's like the same thing we've wondered when the conditions index came out, for example, about the way you like label a kid or a neighborhood as being one thing or another. So I'm just trying to think of how to, like, I'd be curious if this is about more like the whole note your number thing, is that like individually for a kid, or is it more of like a broad, like, what's our community status?
Yeah, it's more
Okay.
broad, yeah, I
Okay,
think
so
I know
it's-
your
okay,
number
that's
is
good. So
kind
it's like
of,
this aggregate
the
kind
name
of just
the
like how are
campaign.
we?
Yes, that's,
Okay.
thank you for asking that. It was more like, what is the number of young people that you're
Achieving
serving, that
these,
you're,
yeah.
you're supporting, yep.
Yeah, though I know that's hard too, because ultimately this is like really longitudinal data that
Yeah.
you don't know if you're successful with any of this until it's like a 17-year plus spectrum, so that's, or like economic mobility, Dr. Chetty was showing was like by age 35, are you earning or out-earning what your parents earned, is like a marker of mobility.
Okay, are you done?
Yeah,
Is that a question or a state, I guess?
just a
From
more of a
us,
comment
what-
than
I
a
mean, I can
question.
tag on to what she's sharing, so
Yeah.
for our standpoint as policymakers, we can't expect people to move neighborhoods, we need to improve the neighborhoods
Yeah.
they're in,
Yeah.
across the city.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
100%.
Which, and that's go back
I
to like,
mean,
is that more of our piece of
And
the pie?
also,
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard it at this table, but previous counselors complained a lot about certain folks moving into their part of town and we don't need any more apartments for those folks, and this is exactly why we do. Because the data over a whole generation of kids shows that if they get the interventions early, it changes the complete trajectory. I will just speak from personal experience. I am here today because I was one of those kids in those neighborhoods that got the opportunities, not in this town. Fuse Corps Fellow, I must have slept, I missed the press release.
She is
Yeah,
next,
I did.
yeah.
I'm paying
It was,
attention.
it was after Bengal,
Yeah,
you,
okay.
and then,
I got it.
Counselor Dr.
So
You
I
have
just
something else
don't
to
know.
add?
No,
Okay, well, I'm a whole.
Are we
wanna
talking
skip
about a
nobody.
different fuse, is there a fuse?
This Fuse Corps
Yeah.
Fellow, literally, this, I feel like this is the first I'm hearing of it, so I must have missed the press conference or press release, because this person's been working at the city for some time.
They're a fellow placed in Tulsa, yeah,
How long have they been placed in Tulsa?
since November.
Okay. And is that like a full-time position?
Yes, they work full-time, they're paid by Fuse Corps, so they're
Okay.
kind of on loan to us for the
And-
year.
They're
Just
paid
for-
by who?
Fuse.
A national organization called Fuse.
So they're on loan to us for 1 year, November to November, so they'll be leaving this November or December?
Sadly, if I
Okay,
can figure
that
something
was my
out, I would love
question.
to, yeah.
Is that grant-funded or outside-funded position part of the staffing pattern that's been proposed in the budget? Or is that a different position?
That's a different position, so,
Okay.
yeah, she has been part of my team, which has been great. She's
Okay.
100% focused on the youth workforce piece.
But she's not gonna transition to this director position, that's a different position that's being
Yeah,
proposed
that
this
would
year.
be-
Okay, I was just getting a little
Yeah.
confused. So that is the split that you have the slide up, half contract, half full-time. And then this grant writer position, is that for the whole city, for the Office of Resilience, or just for the Mayor's Office of
Yeah,
Children and
so
Youth?
that was put into the budget this past year, and so I finally were able to get a RFP, send it out, and I believe the grant writer is going to be signing a contract this week, hopefully.
Oh.
And it'll be for the whole city, so the idea is that we have
And
a
it's a
grant.
contractor?
Yeah, it'll be a
Okay.
For the whole
vendor.
city, is that the one we've been talking about?
Yeah, for 2 years.
2
This
years,
is-
yeah. Okay, just wondering.
Initially, dollars were allocated
The
for
wheels
this
turn
3
very
years
slow.
ago. and I
So,
had matching dollars
okay,
lined up for it.
so for budget purposes, since this is a
Yes.
budget meeting, we have $275,000, which is flat from this year to next, but now we're going half in-house, half contract. What is this $500,000 resource we're talking about? Is that an outside grant that would be
It would be, from
applied
the
for by this
foundation.
person that we're contracting?
Yeah, well, with my support, yeah.
Okay,
We would.
so that
Well, I'm sorry, the grant writer, you mean?
no,
no.
the mayor was talking about if we can get the $500,000 that Crystal's been talking about.
Yeah, so that would be, we would write it. We
Okay, so
wouldn't
that's
need
a
to pay the
different
grant writer.
500,000 than the 275 that we're being asked for in this budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so
So
275
two
from the
different
general
separate
fund,
items.
and we're gonna go and apply for this
For
500.
another 500 to build capacity or
To do the program, to,
to deliver
yeah,
programming.
yeah, or interventions, test out pilots, yes.
And that's gonna be through the partners that we're already convening.
Likely, we haven't identified all the pilots, so that's to be determined, but it will
Yeah.
be to support those interventions, pilots, programs, scaling something.
I'm kind of going back to your Housing Solutions Tulsa, Way Home for Tulsa analogy. Because, you know, in 2019, we had this convening of 300 partners at Greenwood Cultural Center. We had a consultant come in and kind of say, this is how other communities' best practices are. We had an outside funder say, we believe in the work, let's put together an organization after the mayor had just kind of had a staff member start to do the work. So I guess my question is the goal to seed something that then lives outside the city? The same way that Housing Solutions kind of started germinating here with policy and piloting and convening, and then it went and now has become what it is. We're contracting with them, but it's not, you know, here anymore.
Yeah, God, I mean, I think the work will evolve over time on what Tulsa needs and what is the most effective way. What you're describing is what has happened in other cities. Other cities have it in-house. It really depends, but I think the infrastructure we're building is very similar. But I can't predict
To, like,
right now.
launch
that-
beyond.
Yeah, like we wouldn't, I don't foresee anytime soon, like, creating a nonprofit to do the work.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess where I'm struggling a little bit is, one, I think, we've said this before, there's nobody at this table that thinks that families, children, or youth do not deserve the love, attention, and investment, public, private, and otherwise. I think where I struggle is we're a sales tax funded entity. We know that inflation is outpacing some of the costs. We also know that we, I think, budget well on the conservative side with our projections on revenues. We project every expense we could possibly have, and, you know, we hold the line pretty well, except sometimes in things like overtime or other areas that we're still working on. I agree with Councilor Hall Harbor, like, the work is important to have a convener that brings all these entities together to focus on this thing. I also kind of see Councilor Bingle's point of view. Not too many years ago, we were struggling a little bit with our tribal nation relations, and we too were like, who's convening everyone to just be in the room so we're not reading in the newspaper about amicus briefs and all manner of things that were beyond our control. So we as a council said, why don't we just invite folks to our table? And we started having quarterly meetings, and folks came. And, you know, there was some real problem solving that we could engage in at a time when the rhetoric was very divisive. I'm not saying the council needs to be the convener, but I'm just wondering, kind of to Councilor Bingle's point, like, how much do we have to drive the bus on getting these folks around the table? And if it's a limited amount of time, because then we are gonna adopt it out, launch it into a nonprofit space, I feel like I could be more supportive, but this kind of open-ended, we'll see where it takes us. It could be, I don't know what these other cities invest annually in their office, let alone the actual programmatic dollars. We heard earlier today from Dr. Johnson, some very specific things. Help with transportation. Give us some out-of-school time programming in your parks. Like, those are things that are also already aligned with our core functions as a municipality. So those things in my mind make a lot more sense. Or, you know, bringing some problem solving around the state has abdicated their responsibility, so now this, well, we've had to do that over COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to step into making sure kids had Wi-Fi and food delivered to their house because there was a gap. But it wasn't sustained for a long period of time. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, $275 flat spend is, you know, on a $1.2 billion budget is not a lot of money, but I just want us to know, I want to know better, and maybe we're just not there yet. Like, year one was like, let's stand up and get all this organized. Year two is growing that out a little bit, but I'm just like, when do the results come? Or like, what are the anticipated results, or the anticipated point where it's like, we've built the infrastructure, we're now launching it out to a new nonprofit or an existing nonprofit that's gonna take and run with it. Cause that's what happened with Housing Solutions. We remember Becky Gligo being here at our table as one person, kind of getting all that groundwork done. And then a nonprofit showing up and saying, okay, we believe in this work with you. And it's not that the city is not involved in homelessness work anymore. We're just involved in the pieces that we can be instead of trying to do it all and not able to do any of it. And I mean, clearly there's tons of partners delivering on their mission the same way in our homelessness space. Those individual organizations deliver on their mission. So I do agree, like, the convening aspect and the coordination aspect, the data collection aspect are all valuable. I just wonder, when we have to ask ourselves really hard questions about where our dollars go, you know, how long and how why are we able to make the investment? So that's just an ongoing conversation I think we need to have. And it probably will come up around the homelessness stuff too. You know, there's gonna come a point where it's like, we've got to do our part. But, you know, we're talking millions and millions of dollars, and to Counselor Hall Harper's point, in conversations with these folks focused in on how to, like, this is a crisis. I think people are not fully understanding it yet. They may understand it once summertime hits and kids aren't in full-time school, right? Now you're gonna have 11 and 12-year-old kids looking after their little brother and sister. There's gonna be impacts that we see this summer. The number that was thrown out to us just to try to backfill, Counselor Bellis, help me if I'm misquoting, is over $6 million right now.
Well over.
Just to backfill that 0 to 6, 1,400 slots that have gone away.
And that doesn't reopen
And,
those businesses.
and like 8,000 K through 12 slots for summertime activities. So like $250 per kid in that cohort, and then more like $3,000 per kid in the like babies and toddlers, which is a bargain.
that was for some summer
$3,000
programs,
for a
too.
whole year, just to have that out of school time. That is, with the subsidies going away, what we see receding out of the, and that's in Tulsa County. Now, I recognize a lot of it's in your district, but that's a lot of money. But then the question is, if we don't spend that money, what happens? And where are the impacts and the cascade? So it's a lot. Right now, we're really focusing on this $275 for the Mayor's Office, Children, Youth, and Families to hire a full-time director and then continue contract work with the entity that's already been contracted. What you had said earlier, like there could be some cost savings realized just from the timing of like an HR process, posting, interviewing, bringing someone in. What is the hope, like if everything goes the way it's supposed to, that you actually have this person hired and like in your office, in the office?
The hope, if like the ideal person,
I mean, like, you're gonna,
exists and
is
they
the
like
job
can start
description?
right away.
Yeah, is like the job description already written, it's already like ready to go if the budget's approved, or is there still that process of like?
No, I mean, the job description, I have the bones of it, kind of have an idea of their duties and what they're gonna oversee, the level of experience, so I have all that. But I think what I'm more worried about is if it is approved, just finding someone that would, come, sometimes that takes a little while.
I mean, by the end of the year, do you think you'd have someone in,
Oh,
or
I mean, I would
by
hope.
the end of summer?
I would
or-
hope the end of the summer, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah.
Just as a reminder, we're into our 2:30 meeting, and we have one other agenda item. So,
Crazy day.
Counselor Dutton, if you
Yeah, it'll
go
be brief.
quickly.
So can we go back a couple slides? Please? Yes, nope. Yes, the Alliance member organizations. So that's a lot of members, and I'm thinking about what Counselor Dr. Wright just brought up. And I don't, to recreate the wheel when we have all of these entities that are collecting data and information necessary. I know that Growing Together is doing that, and they collect a lot of data necessary. I think standing up all the data that we have right here and all of these organizations can be part of the convening aspect where we won't need to consult with outside or pay an outside consultant to come in and figure out what we can figure out with what we already have.
Yeah, I think you're right, those organizations collect data, the issue is they're collecting it in different ways and different timelines, or, so I think we would need a little help to figure out how can everyone contribute to the data in a common way that can be translated and then reported out.
Well, I'm just thinking for the last year, I mean, that process could have already started with these members.
Could have.
Yeah, and we could be ahead in the cost values that we're looking at for funding the Children, Youth, and Families Department.
Yeah, well, that's part of the work this year is to finalize and the Know Your Number campaign and how we include communities in it too. So, yeah, that'll be this year.
Okay, all right. Okay, briefly. Ready, set,
Did you all
go.
talk about just the press release that named kind of what the standards, what kinds of outcomes had been resolved or attributed to either the work of all these agencies or the Mayor's Office of Children, Youth and Families? I still go back to this. It says, I'm just going to read it. While much of the MOCYF's first year of operation was about convening partners and setting up civic infrastructure to make the office successful for the long term, early indicators from the first planning year, blah, 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 include 159 additional children enrolled in pre-K. Did the office enroll 159 different children?
So,
I'm just trying to understand
yeah,
what.
and we talked a little bit about that, how
Okay.
going forward, if there was and not intentional, and, that it sounded like we were taking credit for work that TPS
Okay,
was
you
doing, or
guys were-
anything like that.
She
But
did.
that's preliminary data, showing kind of like what has happened in the past year. Going forward, we'll be more clear on.
But because of the mayor's office or because of just the efforts of these
It-
partners?
It was meant to talk about the collective efforts, not.
Okay, and same
that-
with all the other things.
Yeah, and
as
the mayor's
well on
office
the-
was reporting on the data and the collective
Okay.
improvements, yeah.
Is that the goal, to report on what's being done or to cause things to be done? Or is it both?
Well, it's, the main goal
Just-
is
yeah,
is the latter, right? We're moving all these organizations and working together, seeing if there's different interventions or funding or things we can leverage that can move very important, like, priorities forward. So solving transportation issues, helping
Oh,
on
yeah,
early
I
grade
got it.
literacy, all that, yes. That's the goal, is the outcomes.
Okay.
And then, but reporting on that's very important, so we can, track progress over time, like our quality indicators and like.
Are we starting with the reporting element? I mean, I know that you and Councilor Bradley just talked about the reporting element, getting all the entities aligned. We're gonna get all those entities aligned, we're gonna spend tens of millions of dollars.
Oh,
Not-
I hope not. Yeah, well,
Well, just on
the good
reporting
thing is
through
that,
it.
the good thing is that
Through
Impact
systems,
Tulsa,
I
our
think.
data, our cradle to grave backbone and the data backbone have a methodology, so, yeah, we'll be
Maybe
able to do.
millions of dollars, but we still need more.
Uh,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good, sorry.
Okay, all right, we're done with this item. We're moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. All right, item number 3, discussion with the Mayor's Office and Finance Department regarding the proposed FY 2026-27 budget and capital plan, including a discussion on proposed counselor and amendments.
Do you mind if I start?
Please, I don't mind at all.
So on this item, we posted this so that you had this general discussion item. If you have questions that either we can answer now or can be answered in the future going forward. And then also, it is a good time before the technical change memo comes to put any budgetary changes or concepts out on the table. I've been trying to keep a list of maybe changes that don't have enough specificity around them yet, that I can go over if you want me to, or if you guys have ideas, and I'm not sure that everybody's even had the opportunity to put out their ideas yet, so.
If you want to
however
put
you would
some
like
out,
to do
just
that.
to start the discussion, and then if Christie or Mr. Miller have anything to say. Do you have anything you want to say before Sarah gets started on that?
No, I think it'd be great to start
Okay.
with Sarah, and we're here
Perfect.
to listen and have kind of a conversation.
All right,
Okay, so these are just the concepts, and again, dollar amounts probably aren't attached to these, or if these are final, but these are the things I've heard you talk about in your budget presentations so far. So you had a presentation on the gap in the zoo project.
yep.
You had a presentation on mental health funding. Since that time, some counselors I know have followed up, and I've followed up on that. There's essentially 2 initiatives possible on that one. One is the 911 COPES funding. The other is a team. They call it the Forensic ACT team. Both of those could have potential ongoing funding obligations, and both of those have different potential models on how they could be funded. You talked about having a maintenance fund, which I interpreted as with a Route 66, starting as a Route 66 focus. Remember, you had Anna and team come present on those items. It sounded like this would be initial start year for that. We've had counselors talk about demolition funds for some significant projects, potentially for code enforcement. These are items that maybe don't necessarily have a funding thing, but there were a lot of questions and discussion. So you had a request for an FEC presentation, which comes at your 2:30 meeting, so you haven't had that one yet. Mayor's Office of Children, Youth, and Family, and you just went over how those dollars were appropriated. Emergency management, you did a presentation on that. There were questions about the increased cost of emergency management with the split. On the Kirkpatrick Heights Greenwood Master Plan, this isn't a funding change, but in the budget, how that is listed for the capital programs would need to change, given the Brown ordinance vote that you had last week. So just noting that change. And then there's this kind of long-term funding of personnel and compensation. So that obviously depends on the employee group, but just as a reminder, in FY 25-26, there were certain positions eliminated that were not restored. In this budget, there are proposed positions frozen that are reprioritized into other positions. And then you also had some follow-up questions regarding where certain personnel were within the city and how they landed. The final thing that I had noted was just some questions about Family Safety Center operations. Sounds like we don't quite have enough information on that one yet about how our relationship works there, so I have noted to follow up on that. So that's what I've heard you say so far on your items.
Yep. You're a good listener.
Yes.
Sometimes.
I have Counselor Bellis, then Counselor Dr. Wright, and Counselor Lakin.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I already listed it, but I just wanted to like reaffirm and uplift that I do think, especially given what we've already invested with alternative response teams between fire and police, and then the state cuts to mental health funding, the federal instability, not the COPES funding, and the FACT team, I just see, at least personally see as non-negotiables and really want to do what we can to find the dollars for those. So just reiterating that on the record.
Yep, agreed, 100%. Okay, and Counselor Dr. Wright?
Thanks. So in the budget, there's $80,000 for a master art plan.
Yes,
When do we get more information about that?
it's my, well, it's
Oh,
gonna be
I
public now. It's my understanding they were gonna say, do you wanna answer that?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
not?
I'm sorry, I was directing the question at
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
No,
I didn't
that's-
know if it had been communicated broadly, but.
Yes, no,
I mean,
thank you for your sensitivity.
It's
That's-
in the budget proposal.
No, that is correct, and we would propose removing that in the
Okay.
technical changes, so.
Is there any documentation that says, like, what led to that request, so we can at least, so I can understand what a public art master plan might be, considering
Yes.
I'm
No, I think there have been
professional artist
conversations
that
with
has a
some
lot of people
counselors, and I think
contacting
there
them.
will continue to be more with our Director of Public Art and Partnerships.
okay.
And if she has not reached out to you to meet, I'm sure she will very soon.
She has not.
Yeah, is
Which
it
I would
something that
highly
you can talk about here at the
recommend.
table?
Was this on the agenda sometime soon?
I guess so,
I was-
but
I heard 3 questions, so I don't know
I'm
which-
sorry.
if I'm
Yeah.
supposed to answer any of them.
Yeah, sorry. Counselor Dr.
yeah,
Wright?
I would just, I mean.
Counselor Bellis,
I
hold
lead
on a second.
the oldest
Nothing.
professional arts organization in the state, and I've sat at this table for 8 years. So I find it a little concerning that we're talking about funding public art in a way that the
Doesn't
professional
happen.
artist on the council has no knowledge of. I'm not saying it's deliberate, I'm just saying when things like that go public, guess who gets the calls? Your arts commissioners and the professional artist who happens to be an elected official. So if we're not gonna do it, that's fine. I didn't have any way to answer to people that saw that on what it might be or how it might impact Vision Arts grants or anything else that the city funds when it
Right.
pertains to art or the 1% for art. So I would just like to know more about the overall public art strategy. I think at the end of the last, the 10:30, we kind of brought up the $300,000 for the jail. I think I would strongly re-articulate at this table, unless we understand more fully why we would put more money into a building we're about to blow up and put a hotel on, I would just say that $300,000 probably could be better utilized somewhere else. Unless we could get more information about, you know, the urgency of doing that expansion in that way.
We're
Are the costs,
adopting my verb finally,
what is that?
blow up.
Oh, I mean proverbially, although I heard for
Demo.
the highest bidder will get to push the button. And then the other thing that I didn't hear you talk about, Ms. Davis, but I just wanted to say to Christy, or to the team that can go find the information. We talked about this last week, Mr. Miller. 15 positions for TPD funded 2 fiscal years ago for warrant clearing, dropped down to 10, never filled those. Now we're proposing 8. I still want to better understand what those 8 positions are going to do. I think last week there was like, it's going to be civil service.
So we proposed 2 new positions this fiscal year. The 8 were in last year, and it was repurposing some of those 15, they were not new.
Okay, so we went from 15 to 10 to 8 or 15 to 8?
15 to,
15 went to 8.
yeah.
Okay.
So they
So I
lost
made
some
a mistake.
positions, and they took some of those positions and created
Two.
those 8.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so,
it's like a net change of,
so we're getting rid of
Yes.
6 and we're keeping 2?
No, we're adding 2 to, no.
3-card money here.
Yeah, right?
That's kind of how I feel.
Well,
I'm
and-
just trying to
Yeah, so
find out where we
I
are.
understand your confusion because
Yes.
that, we came in and we said, what are all these positions that are unfilled for?
Right, right.
And so, rather than add positions in the current fiscal year at the civilian positions, we asked the police to repurpose some of those to not
So
increase
are they
the
already
budget.
filled positions?
So they have filled some of those positions in the
Currently.
current fiscal year,
Got it.
but we eliminated several of them in the current, when the budget proposal this time last year.
Was it 6 that we
So it went
eliminated?
from 15 to 8, so I guess
Okay.
that's 7, right?
So for the 300.
And
And are we keeping those 7?
Yes.
So this, what we see in the budget proposal is not new, it's just catching up to what's already been happening.
well, I think that was a
You-
follow-up, like in the presentation, I think someone asked that we
Yes.
include did we do what we said we were gonna do in the
Right.
budget
Yeah.
for FY '26? And so that was being presented as, yes, we've done
We
that.
did it.
That was a response
It's
to a question, it
it's
wasn't part of
8
our
with-
budget proposal.
It's 8 with civilians and moving on, we're not doing a 15-unit
Right.
warrant clearing
Correct.
moment.
Correct.
Great,
And so in this year's budget, we have 2?
2.
yes.
2 positions.
And also in this year's budget proposal is this independent Office of Emergency Management. We talked last week with the commissioner. I think we have some outstanding questions about it. I do want to, since we've all slept since a week ago, one of those positions is already filled right now. I don't know what, is it one of these things where it was a different unfilled position? Let's reclassify it or reorganize it to be in this capacity, even though I'm just trying to I have a little bit of a frustration where like the train is pulled out of the station and then we're getting asked to be like, do you agree that this is what we should do? We have no choice. The train is already down the tracks. So it feels like we have not a lot of control over, hey, we're standing up something that's gonna be 60% more expensive than the way we're doing it. And so I'm just trying to get clarity. Is the position right now that we get emails on weather days from that assistant person a utilized unfilled position that now we're just moving into that office
It's a new position.
with new dollars?
And the dollars were from the money that would have been going to TEMA, that's not.
Because we changed our agreement with them mid-year. So it's like a cost savings realization, just repurposed. But what it does, and this is what I want to flag for you all, is obligates us now on this new track. Well, not just one person, a whole office. And so I don't know how we avoid those things moving forward, but that's why I continue to ask when we ask for an accounting, what things are one-time and what things are going to obligate us in the future for sustained funding or even additional. And so in the emergency management, this is additional dollars now that we're gonna have to find. And I don't think we can go backwards, because I think last week we understood that the whole contract or agreement has been dissolved. So we don't have alternatives necessarily. Yeah. Okay, those are my questions.
Okay. All right, Counselor Larkin?
Lincoln today.
The chief of last to know.
So I don't know if it was our previous meeting or the 10:30 meeting, because I've lost track of time already today.
What time is it? What day is
But,
it?
you know, the beautification fund and how we scripted it out, where we have these tranches of money coming in every single year, same thing with parks. I wonder if we just use the same strategy for this maintenance fund. You know, it's, a bond could be seen as an endowment fund. What we need are consistent distributions of money that are dedicated for purposes, designated purposes. So instead of saying, we're gonna find 10 million, and, which is just a number that I'm making up, and putting it over into like an endowment fund, and then using the distributions every year for those activities, for the $100,000 that we'll get out of it, or $400,000, whatever it comes out to be. Maybe coming up with something like that. For the $10 million in the zoo that we're potentially looking for, $10 to $15 million, I would say a match of some kind makes sense if that's not already been spoken. But $10 million for the zoo could come if we get the grant for the public safety center. So I know we're talking, yeah, so I don't know what the grant amount request is, but if we get that grant, and it's $13 million, 10 of that $13 million could go for the zoo.
Three can go to maintenance.
It may help them help us get the grant. It may help all of us get the grant so that we can serve both the public safety center and the zoo, just as an idea.
Well,
From a
can
previous
I say
meeting.
something real quick on that too?
You go.
On the zoo, I mean, just not on the public safety center, but also if we find partners for jail, or if we
Totally.
find a building that we can utilize for a court, instead of having to build all new,
What a
brand
great
new
idea.
facilities. So it could go for that purpose as well, so.
Yep.
Yep.
On TIMA, I like the opportunities that have been put on the table. Can I just ask how much it cost us before we split and how much it's projected to cost after? If you haven't already said.
You definitely said it last week, but I don't have it in front of me.
I felt like it was
Okay.
263.
263
To like-
before?
Plus now we're adding 200,000.
Okay, so it's
So the
doubling the
split.
amount of money
60,
that we're
it's like a 60 or 40%.
utilizing for emergency management.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
Doubling.
then
So
I
it's a
mentioned this.
$200 increase.
Double, it's basically double.
200,000.
Is any of that capital at
Yeah.
one time?
Yeah, 200,000 increase.
Yes.
I think there's some one-time funds, but then in FY '28, there's another position, so.
So it's gonna go more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's
Fiscal
right.
year '28 has a deputy management position added in. So that's a three or four person staff.
Yeah, it's tough. There's no going back.
Child
What you
support.
said?
No, there's the possibility of going back. I will reemphasize what Councilor Dr. Wright said, is
I
that
say it about
maybe
me.
none of us had any opportunity to do anything about this, but we're put in a bad catch-22 situation where if we don't fund it, then we risk the lives of Tulsa citizens.
Right.
Yep.
And the liabilities that come with that, all of us. I mean,
Yeah, we
it's not
like just
the
have to have
council, it's
emergency
all of
management,
us.
period.
Yeah, right.
I just don't like spending more money for maybe what are the same services that are being produced. So I would love to try to get together with the county and figure out if there's any opportunity to keep things together. Maybe that's been tried, but I think our governments are stronger together than separate. And we've spent a lot of time studying different cities and counties, focusing in on what they do collectively rather than separately. I think two last things I'll say. Early settlement, I don't know if that's in the budget or not. It is good. Great.
At the plan year amount, which was 24,000.
Which is half of what we gave last year.
Yeah, that's what you put in plan year last year.
'Cause we were
and
gonna try to
it was
get that,
consistent this year.
So it may be that that's the number, or it may be that we would want to go up to the number that we gave last year. And then, I don't know if this is on agenda topic or not, but I am concerned about the use of ARPA funds in Safe Move. That already hasn't been articulated. And I just need to know what the last possible date is before we say, hey, Safe Move still has X balance, we
Yeah.
gotta move that away. You already know that date?
Now, we've got, I think we spoke earlier, Chrissy spoke briefly earlier, We are having meetings with them regularly to make sure that that process is smooth. September 30th is the last day that they can, and then they've got to do their invoices early October, so that before the end of the year, we will be able to have time to reappropriate that money if there is any left. And our goal, of course, is.
Reappropriate and spend.
Yes. Yes, that's very good. Thank you for that clarification. That is true.
Yeah.
And so.
And do we have a process for spending that money quickly? We're going to have
Like something in mind.
opportunities, and can those be shared with us at our next meeting similar to this one?
Sure.
So that we kind of know the outline of that? Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
That's what I was getting at the 10:30, was bringing that sheet to the table,
Yep. Yep.
so
Okay.
we know about it. Okay. Anybody else? Sarah, thank you for being such a good listener.
Welcome. Well, and this is a living document, so, right?
Yes.
I don't know about the rest of you, but when I can focus on this job on the weekends, then I gather up all my stuff and shoot emails over to Sarah, which I'm sure she's pleased to
I
receive.
have received more questions in the last few hours that I have not forwarded on, so I'm about to forward.
What's our
Counselor
deadline?
Bingle?
What's the deadline to like keep digging into this stuff? I know.
Sarah?
So your projected budget adoption date is June 10th, which means technical change memo and the
Yeah.
budget ordinance are
Right.
coming on June
That's
3rd.
2 weeks.
Okay.
You have a backup date of June 17th. After June 17th, Christy and I get too scared.
And we don't even meet next week.
Yes,
Right.
and you don't meet next week, so if there is something that needs to be on the agenda with answers on June 3rd, we really do need to know what those things are.
I just did want to say it was 263 when we were in the partnership with the county, and it's gone up an additional, I think, 200,000 plus the plan year, which is another 200,000 for
I did
this
not
fiscal.
realize-
Some
So
capital
in
comes
FY
off of
'27,
it.
it's 162,000 higher than plan year, which includes 83,000 for a vehicle. So it's about, ongoing operating costs is about 80,000 more in FY '27. And then in FY '28, it is closer to that 200
Right.
ongoing higher.
But in this, we're going from 263 to 425 with the one-time expense of like
Truck or
standing,
whatever.
right? But there's ongoing maintenance, whatever, and then I don't know if this deputy person also needs a vehicle, it's just. I would just like to highlight what Counselor Lakin said, when we're gonna make investments, we need to know what the ROI is, like how are the citizens gonna experience a better outcome, a better response, a better whatever, right?
Or what was the data that really drove the change?
Yes.
I feel unclear
I
on
mean,
that
I think
still.
we're okay with spending money if we know it's going to improve lives of our constituents or make things safer. But I haven't heard that argument. I've only just heard we had this opportunity when this terrible thing happened to the county to just
Yeah.
do our own thing.
And that other cities, some other cities do it this
Yeah.
way, and I'm like, well,
Right.
I don't need to be like every other city, you know,
Well,
but.
I mean, if
But
there was
maybe-
some real compelling reason to
What's the
increase
reason?
the
Yeah.
cost, then let's do that. But
Right, right.
I think
Right.
that's true of a lot of these initiatives, you know, when it costs more money, it doesn't mean we're getting better outcomes. So that's what I'm trying to be mindful of.
You're just staring.
All
All right, Counselor Bingle.
Do I finally get a turn?
Yes, you do.
No, I'm just kidding.
Staring a hole.
And I appreciate everything you all said, because I've been saying this.
I know.
And I said, I'm tired of people adopting this monkey see, monkey do, and I'm gonna use that over and over. Mentality of so-and-so's doing this, so we need to do it. But can't articulate what the costs are gonna be. So now, we've been talking about this, duplicative services, the partnerships that we have. When you create divorce, now you've got a split cost of maintaining the kids, right? So that's what we're doing here. And so, making unilateral decisions, and I'm gonna be frank, this was a unilateral decision. There was no discussion with this council who was going to be responsible for funding this. This was a unilateral decision. And that's what I take exception to, is because now we're stuck trying to figure out how to fund this. And I get tired of being at this table, certain people blurting things out, and that's what we need to take action on. But when you have somebody who's cautionary and says, hey, you need to think about how this is going to be impactful to our budget, and people ignore it and go through the process anyway. So I'm a little irritated about this whole thing.
Just a little?
Yeah, because this is now an increase. We're talking about $275,000 in one capacity. And then now we're doubling the costs on ourselves for something else that we could have totally avoided.
Or at
It's
least
just
gotten a
pure
chance to
nonsense.
weigh the.
I think there's
Well,
outcomes
and
that we
just the
agree
cost that if
on.
we don't do it.
Yeah, I think there's outcomes
Yeah.
we all agree that we want for our community. It's just the pathway to achieving them. Some of us are a little bit more like, how can we efficiently and most affordably sustain this? And that's the push-pull that I feel like I'm in right now too.
Yeah, yeah.
Politics.
Okay, are you done? Do you have do you want a response?
No, I don't want a response. I mean, there is no response.
It's too late,
Well,
yeah.
We're now stuck with having to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
and
where my
explain
heartburn
it,
is.
and
And
explain,
explain why
what
we're
do you get
spending
for
twice as much.
200,000 more a year?
It just doesn't make sense.
Our
to me.
name on the mark, our name?
You can't go back.
On the storm tracker.
I don't know if we can go back. We don't contract, we don't negotiate those things. We just pay for the stuff, ultimately. We do. I mean,
If a partnership worked, why did we dissolve it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Because he was a sicko.
That was one really
That's like
horrible
an
HR
HR
thing. That's
issue.
not a outcome
know.
issue of the whole
I'm telling
entity.
you what.
Yeah. That's what we just need to.
we need to be mindful.
I'm done.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then, any other questions, concerns? Because we are now 3:15, 45 minutes.
So
Late.
on at least the June 3rd agenda, you'll have the budget ordinance, so you'll have a broad item to talk about.
Perfect.
There were some mentions on the Brown ordinance that relates to the budget regarding some language, so I assume we will put that back on committee to talk through that language. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if there are any other items, then if you could just let us know as soon as possible.
Yeah. If, with the Brown ordinance, I mean, with the language that we're using for the Public Safety Center, in the case that we do get the grant that you initiated with INCOG, if there's somehow we can initiate that same language, if we find partners with our jail, or if we find a building that we can use for our courthouse, instead of building or buying another building and renovating
Yeah,
it.
I wrote down that, and then also just, there is one line item that maybe just the general use should be expanded a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah,
So we
Okay.
can bring back drafts of that at that committee.
thank you.
Jack maybe wrote them already. No, I was hoping that's what you were doing.
Okay, all right.
So
Then item 4, we're adjourned. Everyone back in 5 minutes.